Last week, my best friend was in town for my birthday weekend, and we went to my gym's hot tub sauna area to just hang out and ran into this girl I know who has been on quite the dating journey. She has been on 43 first dates in the past 2 years. If you do the math, that's like a date every other week, a first date every other week, not including holidays. So she is persistent, she's committed, she knows what she wants. And it was also just fun talking with her, sitting in the hot tub talking about boys. But in that, I realized a few things about myself. Firstly, I got a lot to say. I have a lot of opinions about dating and relationships and love, but I also hesitate to share them online or on the podcast because I kind of feel like, what do I know? But then I get reminded that I've been with the same person for 6 years. And to me, that feels like a significant amount of time, given that I just turned 27. So I got really lucky to meet my husband early in life. And also, I have quite a bit of experience. Like, I've been around the block. I also, have been to college, been dating in college, talked to a lot of people, lived many lives, so to speak. And part of that is thanks to my mother, and a lot of the advice that I'm going to share with you here is passed on from my Russian mom. If you know anything about Slavic women, they are notorious for having very strong opinions about the way love and marriage should go, especially in a hetero dynamic. And a lot of the advice that my mom raised me with, I completely agree with, and this is genuinely advice that I give my sister. So I do think that this is going to be a perfect blend and balance of unfiltered Mary yapping about dating and also self-worth mindset type of recalibration for your head in case you are in that journey, in case you're feeling discouraged, in case you're in a committed partnership, but there's bumps in the road. That is so normal. That happens in my marriage. It's a lifelong thing that we're all going to be kind of probably thinking about love, experiencing romantic love. And I just hope that we can do it in a healthy way more often than not. So today I'm spilling the tea on my unpopular opinions, or perhaps a better word is unfiltered opinions on dating, relationships, marriage, and love in general. So we're going to talk about some things I feel passionately about, like who should pay on the first date. My answer might surprise you. We're going to talk about, like I said, some mindset related things and also some kind of big truths that I've had to learn through some really big, tough, challenging breakups. So hopefully I can shine a light on all phases of romantic love. Before we dive in, though, I promised myself that I would read a positive review during all my solo episodes because these really do hype me up and keep me going, make me so happy. So this one says, Mary is a breath of fresh air. I'm a new listener, but I'm completely hooked on this podcast. As a pathological people pleaser who has let her negative self-talk dominate her life, I can honestly say that I'm learning a lot about self-love and positivity. Where have you been my whole life, Mary? You're like a friend I never had. Thanks so much, and keep spreading the love far and wide. That means the world to me. If you want to leave a review, it just takes 1 minute for you, but means the whole world to me. You could do that on Apple Podcasts by scrolling all the way down on the Mary's Cup of Tea podcast homepage, and you can just click the stars you want. Or on Spotify, I don't think they let you review, but they do let you rate, and that also helps a lot. So let's dive in. Let's start it off strong. Who should pay on the first date? By the way, a lot of what I'm going to say is hetero-coded because that's personally my experience, but I'm going to try my best to make it as inclusive as possible because I'm also, a bisexual lady and I can picture the challenges of these dynamics. And I'm sure there's so much that I could learn in that sphere. It's just not really where I live in right now with my husband. So anyway, at first I was going to say the man should always pay, but then I changed my mind on this. I believe that if I were to say this fairly and objectively, I believe that whoever did the inviting should pay for the date. There are even times when I invite my friends out and I pay because I'm like, no, I invited you. I wanted to do this with you, right? But especially in a romantic dynamic where if you're looking for something more serious, both people are coming. And essentially, what's happening is you're setting the precedent for how your relationship is going to go henceforth. So, personally, the precedent that I'm coming to set when I go on a first date or when I went on a first date is I might be the mother of your children. Even if we're not going to get married, me getting involved with you also comes with a lot of risks. Like there's obviously safety, like statistical safety risks of going out with a guy. Like you are putting your life at risk. There's also certain risks about like the emotional investment. Like I do believe that in general, women invest a lot more. They just give a lot more of themselves. So in terms of energetic balance, my mom would always say, what's the point of a man if he doesn't make your life easier? Like, no, literally, what's the point? Especially now in 2025, we have jobs, we make money, we can have credit cards, we can have mortgages, we can do a lot of things on our own. That's not to say that we don't want somebody by our side to share life with, to maybe have a family with. I want all of those things too. But also, what I am looking for in partnership and how I like my partnerships is to kind of, I appreciate when when my husband acknowledges that no matter what I do, no matter how many bills I pay, no matter what I do around the house, no matter how many times I take the trash out, it is absolutely never, ever, ever, ever going to compare to the amount of physical, emotional, hormonal, energetic, mental input that it takes to, for example, grow a baby. And that is something that I want. And that's something that when I was dating, I was very clear about that. Like, yeah, I want kids one day. And yeah, I want a family. And so that might sound like a little bit traditional, but I think that even if you don't want kids, what I said earlier still really stands. I feel like in general, women just bring more. I was reading this forum and this just really made sense for me. It says approximately 73% of women between 18 and 29 years old wear makeup at least once a week. Okay. Stay with me. While it would be short-sighted to assume all women who wear makeup wear it for the sake of men, it's important to consider the pressure women are under to be aware of and improve their appearance, particularly on dates. The standard expectation of date etiquette actually ends up costing women at least as much, if not more. Saying that women aren't forced to do these things is technically true, but tricky. First, men also aren't forced to pay the bill, so neither situation is one motivated by literal necessity. Additionally, these sexual expectations are often imposed by men. Like a lot of these gender roles, they're literally imposed by the patriarchy, and then we get scolded for wanting the little part of it that maybe slightly a little bit benefits us, which is like what? A coffee, a drink, like a little snack, like boo-hoo. I wanted to share this quick dating experience with you. I was in college and I was dating this guy that was a little more well off. Actually, he was a cafe owner. It was really awesome. I highly recommend dating a cafe owner because they are so like kind to their community and just like really involved. Not all, but my experience of this person was really good, even though it didn't work out, obviously. But he took me out on a date. And at this point, he had been paying a lot. So I just really wanted to pay. Like I was just starting to feel guilty, right? And so I was fighting him on it. I'm like, no, please just like let me pay this one time. And he goes, babe, it's not a gender thing. You're a student. Let me pay. And that made me feel so good. Like, I hope that whoever you're involved with has a way of speaking to you where they are genuinely kind, where they're paying because they want to do something nice for you, because they enjoy your company. They want to be with you. And I hope that if you pick up the bill, you feel the same way, that you're not doing it out of a place of like guilt and shame and like, you know, trying to prove something. I think it's very important that we talk about like, why are we doing the things that we are doing, right? It's not about like rigid rules that the man always pays and the woman always has to do XYZ. I think it's more about like how are we treating people? How are we approaching it? Why are we doing this? And what are we expecting in return? Hopefully, the answer is nothing. And I'll just never forget that moment because it made me feel good and it kind of like raised my standards a little bit more. It took away the whole like gendered conversation and made me see that there's also other types of power imbalances that can be either highlighted while you're dating or can be, adjusted a little bit to make the dynamic feel that much better for both parties. And I think that that's very important. So, thank you to that hot cafe owner that I dated. Like, there's just so much that goes into it. There is so much more that women are risking by putting themselves out there, not to mention the safety aspect, right? Like, you are literally risking your physical safety to go out on a date with a man, speaking statistically. And I think that if you want to split the bill and go Dutch because you're concerned about your safety, because you don't want to owe anybody anything, right? I understand that. And I would actually invite you, this is the advice that I would give my sister, before you meet up with somebody, like please, please, please talk to them, FaceTime them, talk on the phone, be in a public place, have like safe micro steps that you take before you commit to like them picking you up, like getting in their car or meeting at like a private place or like a very intimate restaurant. The way that my husband and I did things, we first met up at like this beautiful plaza. It has all these lights, has a few bars and restaurants, lots of people around. And he said, "Hey, do you want to just meet up and go for a walk?" That's literally what we did. We met up and went for a walk, and he invited me, and that cost him absolutely nothing. It just cost both of us time. And the other thing that I appreciated is because time is your only finite resource, he picked a place that was literally 5 minutes from the area where I said that I lived. And so he made it just like really convenient to me. So instantly, the precedent that he set for our relationship moving forward is that I'm going to make your life easier because what's the point of a man if they don't make your life easier? And the wise words of my mom. But I appreciated that. And so we met up and then that went really well. And there was like a bar restaurant. He said, "Do you want to grab a drink?" We grabbed one and then another. And then there was an Italian place across the street and things were going so well. So it's like the trust was earned. The date kind of unfolded in a way that I felt very comfortable. Like, even though usually I wouldn't commit a whole dinner on the first date, the way that it progressed made me feel very safe. And so I think that whatever you do, however you decide to, I don't know, split or let them pay, or maybe you pay because that feels good to you, so much respect for whatever you choose. I know some women who are like, I won't even consider a date with somebody unless they invite me to a nice dinner. I would never just get coffee. To me, coffee is too transactional. It's giving corporate. It's just ick, right? I completely respect and understand that. Like, everybody has their own thing, but whatever you do, please ask yourself if this feels safe and good in your body. And please make sure that you're kind of taking steps that are proportional to the person that they are showing themselves to be. I believe that women are just amazing. We naturally have this creator energy beyond just like the biological capabilities of creating children. Even if you don't want children, a lot of the like emotional mental load just does inevitably fall on us. Like, that's just kind of where we're at now, and we are trying to fix it. But while we're balancing the scales of gender, or perhaps breaking out of the binary completely, I think in the meantime, the least we can do for a little bit of equity is letting them pay more often than not. Okay, next mindset related love advice that I'm going to give. And this is something that I'm personally working on. If you want to be with someone, or like a certain type of someone, become that someone first. And if you're with a person now and you want them to change in some way, make those changes for yourself too. Make sure that you're on the same journey that you're expecting your partner, whether it's present or future partner, to be on, because like does attract like. So if you want, if you're like, I want somebody who's kind to me, ask yourself, are you kind to you? If you want someone with a secure attachment style, what's your attachment style like? Have you worked on that at all? If you say you want someone who loves you regardless of what you look like, do you love yourself regardless of what you look like, however your body is? It's very illuminating when you think of it that way. If you say you want somebody who is emotionally available, emotionally aware, emotionally intelligent, how are you working on your emotional health? Like, where are you in that journey? If you want somebody that's like debt-free and rich, well, are you financially free, or are you en route? Like, does that value of yours align with the actions that you're taking, right? If you want somebody family oriented, I'm not saying you have to have the perfect family. I'm saying that even if you don't come from a big family or your family is broken like mine is, how are you showing up for your chosen family? How are you involved in your community? You know what I mean? You are going to attract who you yourself are becoming. And it's not about being fully healed or fully debt-free or this perfect partner. It's more about making sure that your values, i.e., what you say that you want, aligns with your actions, like what you actually do. And it's not about a destination or finding somebody who's at the destination. It's just about being on that journey. And as you're on the journey, who are you going to meet along the way? So if you say that you want a certain someone, but your lifestyle, your attitude, your mindset isn't en route to what you say that you want, then there's like a big gap. There's a big incongruency there. And it's actually kind of unfair to your partner. Again, whether that's your present partner or your future partner. Let me give you a personal example. So I have been like really wishing for Stan to read more, like books. He's not a big reader, never has been. I always knew that going into the marriage. I always identified as an avid reader. And sometimes I caught myself like making these snide remarks to him about like, why are we watching TV? We should be reading. And that's kind of unfair because I'm also there watching TV. I'm also there scrolling TikTok. In that time of my life, I also like wasn't reading a lot. So instead of kind of being on his ass about how little he reads, I had to check in with myself and be like, okay, like clearly this is a projection. Clearly I'm feeling a little insecure by how little I've been reading lately, how much technology has been sucking my time. And so it had to be like a conscious decision of me being like, I'm going to go in the bedroom and read. Do you want to join me or not? Feel free to stay out here, watch TV, whatever. But I'm going to go read. And that's my journey. And this is like this concept of sovereignty that I just really like to picture in relationships. It's like a very basic Venn diagram. There's their bubble, there's your bubble, and there's the bubble that intersects. And not everything has to intersect, but I think the more you focus on your own bubble with respect for their bubble, the more that middle portion, whatever you share in common, is going to be filled with such deep love. Whereas if I'm focused on his bubble and I'm like, why aren't you reading more books? Meanwhile, I'm not really reading a lot of books either, then that middle bubble is just going to deteriorate because suddenly I'm on him about something that actually I should be prioritizing for myself. And I think this goes with anything. Like a lot of people say they want a certain type of someone, but then you kind of realize that they're not really reflecting those qualities and traits that they want. So like I said, it's kind of illuminating. It reminds me of the saying, you know how they say like you teach people how to treat you? I feel like that quote is incomplete. It's you teach people how to treat you by how you treat you. You teach people what you want, what you stand for, what you value by what you do, by how you spend your time, by where you put your focus and energy and attention. And when you're dating, like if you're not in a relationship right now, it is so important to have that balance of like focusing on yourself, doing the activities that you want to be doing, educating yourself, always like rising a little higher. My mom would always tell me, she'd say, your only job is to bring yourself up as much as possible in all ways, with education, with your career, with your mindset, with your spirituality, with your health, like always just take care of you. And wherever, she would say this in Russian, "Где девочки, там и мальчики." Wherever there are girls, there are boys. And the reason why she would tell me this is because like, when in middle school or elementary school or whatever, it was kind of uncool to be smart. I came home crying to my mom one day and I said like, I don't want to take these higher level honors AP classes. Even later in high school, I was thinking this way. I said, I don't want to take these classes because everybody's like kind of nerdy and I don't, I want to be cool and dating. Like, I'm sorry, that sounds so bad now that I'm 25 or 27. Oh my gosh. Now that I'm 27, that sounds absolutely ridiculous. My mom would reassure me like, no, you take those AP classes. You get the education that you are entitled to. Do not worry about dumbing yourself down to bring yourself to a level where you think that, a lover, a potential mate is going to hang out. Instead, lift yourself up, take care of you, do what you want to do. And whoever can keep up, like, they're going to be there. They're going to stick around. They're going to be so much more of your person than if you were to sabotage yourself to be where they are. So you teach people how to treat you by how you treat you. So if you want to be with someone, become that someone first. Next order of business. This is the one that I think my married friends might disagree with me on. Okay, I personally refuse to subscribe to this idea that relationships are hard or that marriage is hard. Again, this is passed down from my mom. My mom has been through a lot. And like I said, she would say, what's the point of a man if he doesn't make your life easier? What I didn't tell you before is that it took a lot for her to finally realize that, because for so long she would tell me, like in her 20s, she was in like a very abusive relationship. And her mom, my grandma, kind of like made her stay in it. Anyway, there's a lot there, right? This is like back in Russia in the 80s, 90s, like it was a mess. So through so many lessons learned the hard way, she, for so long, believed that she's supposed to stick around. She's supposed to make sacrifices. She's supposed to bend over backwards for these people because relationships are hard. Marriage is hard. And nobody's even really that happy anyway. This is like a really deep-rooted mindset in my culture. We have this saying that's like, how do you translate it? It's like, it's shit, but it's mine. We'd literally say, говно, но моё. Like, he's a piece of shit, but he's my piece of shit. And that mindset is just so toxic. So when I was going through my own like toxic, abusive relationship, though I kind of struggled to admit it at the time and still do, my mom would say like, it doesn't have to be this hard. And this person that I was with would literally gaslight me. He would say, all marriages have fights like this. You think so-and-so and so-and-so don't fight. Like, this is normal. Relationships are hard. We're just going to have to be in it and whatever. And then he would use that as an excuse to justify more verbal abuse, more emotional manipulation, more of his detrimental choices and actions. And it took me so long to like rewire myself to accept easy, safe, smooth, steady love. I've made episodes about this. If you grew up with me on this podcast the past 5 years, you've really watched my mindset around this grow, because early on when I started dating my now husband, but then boyfriend, I literally would think so much to myself, this is too good to be true. This can't be real. I'm just waiting for the second shoe to drop. There must be something wrong with him. I'm just, I'm not worthy of this is essentially what I was telling myself. But the kind of like tangential belief to I'm not worthy of steady love is this idea that relationships are just inherently hard and, there's no such thing as like easy love. I'm not saying there aren't hard times in relationships. Obviously, there are challenges, there are struggles. We've been in and out of couple therapy. Like, there are bumps in the road, but I will never make this like blanket statement that all relationships are hard, because I do feel that the right relationship should feel easy more often than not. It's hard to qualify what more often than not means, but more often than not, at least more easy than arduous. Marriage is hard can sometimes be used to justify staying in relationships that are draining or incompatible or just suck you dry. Like, there's a difference between navigating challenges together and choosing each other even when it's hard, even when life throws shit at you or there's something within the dynamic, but feeling like your relationship is a constant uphill battle like all the time, that's just a big red flag. A healthy relationship should make your life better, easier, and not be a source of exhaustion. I just feel really passionately about that. And especially so if it's like really hard, really early on, like, I don't know. I mean, I have so many thoughts. Again, my like not so great toxic relationship that I left many years ago, like, it was really hard really early on. I just remember it being tumultuous from day one. But because I was so young, frontal lobe wasn't developed, didn't know any better, I confused that toxicity, that emotional roller coaster for passion, for like proof that we're like twin flames. I literally used to say that. I'd be like, oh, well, we're just like so in love that it's hard for us to be apart. And we only fight when we're not together. And oh my God, like, no. When I hear people talking like this, it's just like a yellow flag for me because I've been through the worst, and that's exactly how I used to justify it. So don't do that to yourself. Do not subscribe to the belief that relationships are hard, and don't let somebody else gaslight you into believing that also. To that point, the next thing, the fourth point that I really want to share here, love is not always enough. Love, saying like, oh, we're in love, or I love them, or I have deep care for them, so I can't leave. Like, love, love can only go so far. I think love is maybe the seed or the soil. Like, it has to be there, obviously. But if there's no sunlight, if there's no water, if there's no like support, mutual support, then that plant, that tree, it's not going to grow no matter how much more soil you dump on it, right? Then it's just going to get even darker. Like, that seed is just going to, I don't know, drown in the darkness. It's never going to bloom without sunlight or water or without you being on the same page about things. And I think that love can take you through a lot, but there are certain things that just cross a line. You have to know when things are getting toxic, when they're getting abusive. And even though you might have deep love, a lot of what love is that I've learned, it is literally a biochemical cascade. It is literally chemicals in your body. I remember learning this when I was leaving my ex, and it was a game changer. When you go back to whatever is familiar, even if that familiar is absolutely terrible. Like, think about getting back with an ex. I mean, please don't think about getting back with your ex. Do not get back with your ex. But think about like if you've ever been in an on and off kind of relationship, think about like the flood of oxytocins and the way your body feels when you go back and you like hug them for the first time after trying to break up. That is not proof of love. That is proof that your mental, emotional, I don't know, like neurochemical, whatever the scientific terms are, that is proof that they have just been manipulated to be accustomed to see this person as a familiar place. But familiar to the animal body doesn't always mean healthy for the human mind. Like, we do have different parts of our brain. We have this lizard brain where we're just mammals operating out of instinct and biology, but we also have a frontal lobe that is quite developed, that can have higher level thinking, that is capable of so much more. And so that part, your frontal lobe, you have to recognize that your animal body, that your human animal body is going to want to go back to whatever is familiar, even if that familiar is detrimental. It's the same reason we self-sabotage. It's the same reason we keep really bad habits that in our minds we know is destructive. But sometimes that like biological like urge to stay in the known overrides the fear of the unknown, even if that unknown is a positive change. So I'm sure you know this in a neuroscientific way, but this is my long-winded version of saying, do not confuse love with a biochemical cascade of oxytocin, serotonin, which is just a byproduct of going back to a familiar place. That is not necessarily love. Of course, you might still care about somebody's well-being, but love is not enough to stay. To me, love is not enough to stay in a bad situation. Lastly, you are not incomplete without a partner. I don't think that everybody's goal needs to be to find a significant other. Love doesn't make you any more or less whole. It might make you feel more whole, right? But feelings are not facts. Feelings are subjective. Feelings are informed by, what we've seen in the media, the movies, and society and culture, what we think that we should want and how we should feel in a particular situation. There are so many different types of love, and romantic love is just one of them. It's just one of the ways to experience life. But there's also deep, rich platonic love. There's creative expression. There's the love for yourself. There is the love for nature and being outside and part of this world. Love has many different expressions. And I don't think that you are any more or less whole if you have a partner or not. So I'm reminded of this text that my best friend, the same one that was in the hot tub with me, who came to my birthday, Dolly, I did an episode with her a couple months ago in December. She wrote me this text after I had got home from Cuba. One thing that I was kind of dealing with is just having a hard time reintegrating after such an experience where I felt like I fell in love, not just with Cuba, the country, but the culture and the people, and just having a really hard time going back to this life after experiencing such richness and depth. And she wrote me, she said, life is long and there's a lot of people along the way and there's lots of room for all types of loves in all places of time. So I really deeply believe that. I'm in this phase where I love my marriage. It's so healthy. It's so great. We are also in couples therapy because it doesn't mean we don't have challenges. Simultaneously, I'm prioritizing, platonic love, like female connection. I'm reminded of episode 219 that I did with Raina Cohen, who wrote a whole book about people who choose platonic partnership, like literally living with a friend or raising a family with a friend or creating their life, moving to be closer to friends, because that is just as worthy and worthwhile and should be as revered in our society and culture as the typical, marriage type of love. I just don't like this narrative of seeing partnership and marriage as like a goal or an achievement in and of itself. I think deeper connection could be a good goal. Nurturing the relationships that you have in your life is a great goal. Creating new relationships, I think all of that is great. But just like marriage, for the sake of having a wedding, for the sake of posting all those photos, for the sake of saying or being affirmed that I am wanted, as patriarchal society says that women should care the most about, I do not agree with that. And I think we are just as whole, just as complete and worthy and wonderful on our own as we can be with a partner. So to recap, stop paying for shit. I'm just kidding. Make sure that whatever you do on a first date, however you split or don't split the bill, make sure that it makes you feel safe. If you want to be with someone, become that someone first. Remember that you teach people how to treat you based on how you treat you. be careful about subscribing to this idea that relationships are hard or that marriage is hard, because that can sometimes be used to justify a lot of boundary crossing. Take this one with a grain of salt, but I personally believe that love is not always enough to stick around. And lastly, having a partner or not does not make you any more or less whole. I hope this has been fun. I hope this has been as fun for you as it is for me. Let me know what you think. I'd love to hear from you. And I'll talk to you in the next episode of Mary's Cup of Tea.